got the power to love. I've got the power to love. I've got the power to love. One people living on one planet, joining in one family. We are all one. One people living on one planet, joining in one family. We are all one. One people living on one planet, joining in one family. We are all one. We are all one.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please take a collective breath with me. Today, we reflect on joy of this season. I could not help but think of a song, Turn, 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 written in 1965 by Pete Seeger and performed by the Byrds. It proclaims, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. The last stanza of this song states, a time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. Thank you, God, for reminding us that we are peacemakers and peacekeepers. With joy in our hearts, we celebrate. And so it is.
And so it is.
Oh, thank you, Judy. Turn, turn, turn. So, we are an interfaith gathering, a spiritual community that honors all spiritual teachers and all spiritual teachings. So, we begin that ceremony that celebrates this oneness of life, which acknowledges that all people and all faiths come from the one universal presence, which we call Spirit. So let us begin in our candlelighters, Don Naft, today. So nice to have you back with us, Don. So our first candle is in the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. Shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of pristine spirituality. Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. I think Judy put out the trick candles today. Got it? Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. A new thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. And of course, our very last candle is the healing candle of love, and we invite you, in the stillness of your own mind, to bring to awareness the names of anyone you wish to be included in this healing flame of love and of light. And now that our flames of faith are fully lit, we move forward into our celebration, realizing and reaffirming that all paths lead to God. Thank you, Dawn. Would you guys join me in our purpose, vision, and mission statements this morning? You know, what is it that brings us here? Why this center? Why at this time in our lives? So our purpose, our reason for being, we awaken and inspire love and oneness. In our vision, what do we want to create or become? We are an empowered, uplifting, inclusive community. And our mission, how are we going to do this? We teach spiritual transformation with grace and joy. And in 1 minute, I'll have the second reading. There we go. So our sacred reading today comes from the Science of Mind magazine, and this was written by Catherine Sachs. It's called Recreating Christmas. The holiday season, Christmas in particular, is laden with the appearance of compulsion. Traditions must be maintained, relatives visited, gifts exchanged, foods overeaten, and beverages overconsumed. It is just what so many of us do. Why continue what does not ultimately serve us? Perhaps it is time to think of the holidays as being new rather than as a time of repetition. Select what we love and renew that and recreate the rest. Find the sacred that we value at this time in our lives and revere and celebrate that instead of something that is no longer alive. Bring the gift of your authentic self to today's celebration. Perhaps this kind of practice will inspire others to release what they no longer value. Let us all prepare to enter the new year from a place of deep respect for the sacred elements in our lives. And that includes family and tradition. But there is so much more than that. There is so much more. Back to the choir. As you can see, we celebrated a birthday yesterday, Aaron. So one of the things that we love to do in this center, one of our centering points is prayer. We love to pray. We love to pray up people, places, and things, and we love to pray for ourselves. But most of all, the practitioner team loves to pray for all of you and whatever it is that's happening in your life that may need some outside prayer jousting, if you will. So there's several ways that you can ask for prayer. Now, for those of you who are here in the sanctuary, you can tap us on the shoulder right after service and get what we call an OM, a 1-minute miracle. A practitioner will be happy to sit with you and do a prayer. And we've got all sorts of practitioners here today. We've got Anne, and we've got Judy, we've got Bob, we've got, of course, the Rev and myself, and Ann Fleming's in the back. Did I miss anybody? Nope. Oh, Robert, holding the presents. Look at that. So we got a practitioner for whatever it is that you need prayer for. So that's the first way. The second way is our website. Just go to our website and you'll see a thing that says prayer, and you can send that 24 hours a day. So, because we know that, crises or bad things don't always happen between 9 to 5. So, as a matter of fact, they usually happen outside of that time period. So, but we're here 24 hours a day. So please keep that in mind. And also, we've got a written prayer request. We have a prayer request box in the back. So don't leave here today if there's something heavy on your heart. And also don't leave here today if you've got something really amazing happening. Let us know. Let's share our lives with each other. Okay, so our announcements for today. I love this Magical Winter Solstice Walk. Now, this is December 21st, which that's a Monday night, isn't it? Tuesday night. So this is going to happen on the actual solstice, and we invite you to come join us at Jewel Lake Park. We're going to start at 6:30 and we're going to go to 7:30, but this is kind of an individual, it's a walk. And so it's not going to be we're going to do everybody at the same time. It's going to be smaller groups of people, and it is truly a magical walk where you get to embrace things you want to embrace, you get to release things you want to release, and you get to think about, what are we going to do in this brilliant new year that's coming to us? So please join us. Please, if you ever got any questions, ask Ann Fleming or myself. But put this on your calendar. I can't tell you how special this event is. It's magical. And if there's anybody who might need just a little bit more of that kind of thing in their life, this is the night for you. Now, we're also doing a Christmas Eve service here at 6:30, and I assume we're also going to go live with that? Yes, so 6:30, and Christmas Eve this year is on a Friday. So come join us. We do have the sanctuary open. Mask wearing is happening, but again, come be with family. Come be with friends. Come be in an atmosphere of joy, of love, of togetherness. And I think that's it for announcements. We've got the Wednesday night meditation and centering prayer every other Saturday. So I would like to invite our cherished speaker, Reverend Don, to come up and talk about the minister's moment.
Thank you, Linda. There was a lot of confusion over the break-in and what happened. So I'll repeat it again for those of you who missed it. We were burglarized back at the end of October. They just broke in the side door, walked right by all the computers, the cameras, all of this kind of stuff. They just left it. They didn't touch it. They broke into the front office, and they might have indicated that they are not totally familiar with how a center or a church works financially, we pass the hat on Sundays, and on Monday morning we take our deposit to the bank. So on Monday night we don't have anything. So they broke in to find nothing. But they did create a real pain, and that is for Blaze, for Reverend Linda, and for Cynthia George, had to redo all the credit cards, all of the payments that we have that are scheduled for auto pay on the credit cards. Of course, we had to avoid all of the checks that were outstanding. They took a whole pile of blank checks, and we have caught, or we didn't catch, the banks have caught several people trying to pass those checks, and they've stopped them all. We haven't had any financial hit at all over it. The police came out and did fingerprints and everything, and all they found were mine. But we suffered nothing from it. Everything was done, except a big load of thanks go out to Cynthia George, Reverend Linda, and Blaze for keeping our skirts clean for all of it. So that's everything we know about the infamous break-in of 2021. And now, music. Aaron, that was wonderful. Thank you so very, very much. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. It's great to see so many of you out there here today. Temperature's a little warmer. We're headed in the right direction, but I guess next week we're headed for cold again. I don't know. It's Alaska. And thank you for those of you who are watching online, Facebook Live. It is indeed an honor to be invited into your home, and I thank you very much for that invitation. It's an honor. The Pascucci family in Bethpage, New York, just about a year ago, were wrapping up their activities of decorating their house. They were really big into decorating for Christmas. The patriarch of the family, Anthony, had an older sister. Her name was Connie, and Connie would come over and they would decorate together. The two of them plus Anthony's two sons, Anthony Jr. and his daughter, Sarah. So there's a guy and his two children and his sister. Now he and his sister would start right after Halloween going to all of the stores and seeing all the new Christmas decorations that were out, and planning and laying out what they were going to do, how they were going to celebrate Christmas this year. It was a really big deal for them, and this year was a great one. You know, they had a new plan. They had all kinds of lights. You had the lights up on the roof, and it even came down to look like sparkling lights coming off the roof into the snow in the yard. They just did a wonderful job. And then a few days after Christmas, Anthony started not feeling very well. And shortly after that, Connie also came down with something. And thought maybe they better get it checked. And so Anthony went in, and sure enough, he tested positive for COVID. So they thought, well, all four of them better go get checked. And they all went in, and all four came back positive for COVID. At first, the symptoms were just, I think today we call it mild to moderate. But shortly after the new year, January 4th, Anthony woke up and he was really having a hard time breathing. And so Anthony Jr. drove him to the hospital, and the hospital admitted him, and he went right into ICU. The family, of course, was very worried. 4 days later, Connie woke up and she had no strength at all. And she wouldn't and couldn't eat. And so Sarah went over to her and saw her, called an ambulance, and she didn't even make it to the hospital. She passed away from COVID in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. It was a really difficult time. Sarah wrote in her diary that it was the most difficult time in her life. All of the things that they had to do, they had to redo the mortgage and put it in the kids' names. They had to, all the things we had to do with the break-in. They had to get all the credit card information squared away. They had to do all of the, get the checking account taken care of. They had all of those things to do. Meanwhile, the two kids are still fighting COVID themselves. And one of the things that came forward for Sarah was that after being out and during the day trying to get her stuff done and everything else, when she would come back, how comforting those Christmas lights were. And it brought back the memories of the joy of the family working together, putting up the Christmas decorations, and how wonderful that time was, and what a beautiful, touching thing. And she just didn't have it within her to to start taking down the Christmas decorations. It was so comforting to see those decorations out there. And one day she came home, she opened the mail, and she was going through, and there was a plain envelope in there, no return address or anything, and she thought, oh, I wonder if that's Dad's ID. The hospital had some of the things that, you know, her father had. And so she ripped it open, hoping to find her dad's ID, but instead there was a letter in there, typewritten, no signed or anything like that, and it said, take down your Christmas decorations, it's almost Valentine's Day. And she just felt a stab in her heart. And she was just going to swallow it and write it up to some uncaring person. But then she decided no. And so she got on the Bethpage, New York equivalent of Nextdoor, you know, the chat that so many people in Anchorage are on, group kind of a thing. And she went in there and she told that experience and what it was like getting this note saying, you know, take down your Christmas decorations. And she wrote in there, maybe this person doesn't know what we've been through. She posted that and felt good to get it off her chest. And then the replies started coming. And she got dozens and then hundreds of comments and people in support of her and saying, it's okay. We understand. You don't need to worry about it. And then one day, as she was coming back to her house, she looked over and there was a house, and she could have sworn that they had already taken down all their Christmas decorations. But she looked over and there was this house with all of its lights up. And she thought, well, that's kind of cool. And the next day, another house, and another, and another, and another. And all over Bethpage, New York, people were going up to their attic, taking down their Christmas lights, and going back and putting their Christmas lights back up. And the messages that she got of support were so profound. She said that she has never been touched in that way before. The community support that she enjoyed and she felt was just an absolutely wonderful thing. And then there was another, you can tell this is an Italian community, another man by the name of Frank Pascuzzi, not to be confused with Pascucci. This was Pascuzzi, Frank Pascuzzi, who had recently legally had his name changed to Santa Claus. He was born with the perfect white beard, the round tummy. The suit was pretty inexpensive compared, and he became the Santa Claus of New York. And he heard about this. And so he rallied his troops, and on the real Valentine's Day, he organized a parade. And there were over 60 cars in the parade, led by a car blaring "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas" over and over to remind people. And as everyone drove by, Sarah and Anthony Jr. sat in the front yard drinking hot cocoa and waving to the people. You know, I talk about the fingerprints of the divine. Well, here was a really good example of the fingerprints of the divine, because the night before Valentine's Day, there was a rather unusual mid-February snowstorm in Bethpage, New York, and all of the lawns were beautiful white. So they were dreaming of a white Christmas. You may wonder what this all has to do with my talk today. The title of my talk today is The Joy of the Season. And our sacred reading this morning really stated it well, and how sometimes we feel that we're under pressure to check off everything on the to-do list. Oh, we've got to have this for Aunt Martha, and we've got to have that done. Oh, we need the house decorated. Oh, we need this. Oh, we need a new tree this year. We come up with these huge to-do lists and these gotta-have done things that take away from the actual true joy of the season. And I submit that maybe it's better off if we turn our focus from the to-do list and focus on a to-be list. There are two narratives in the Christian Gospels that deal with the birth of Jesus. And I've done this before, many years I've been doing this. The first is in the book of Matthew, and the author of Matthew wrote about the three wise men and had the star, and that was that half of it. The other one was in the Gospel of Luke. The author of Luke wrote about the baby in the manger and the shepherds and all that. Now, where else but the United States? We take these two disparate, different stories and meld them together, mush them together into one experience. And I think sometimes in doing that, we miss some of the things, because I think that the true story of these two Christmas stories are the symbols that are within it. So the title of my talk is The Joy of the Season. And what I'm going to talk about, first of all, is that the Gospels are not fact. They were never meant to be fact. Number two, that they are full of symbols. And I'm going to talk about some of those symbols a little bit. And number three, what does all this have to do with us, and how does that help us have a more enjoyable and meaningful holiday season? Okay, first of all, the Gospels are not fact. Well, there are many, many, many indications that this is true. And I'm just going to list a few of sort of the ones that popped up to the top for me. In Matthew, Matthew states that Jesus was born when Herod was king. That's great, except Herod died in 4 BCE. So Herod was dead when Jesus was most likely born. Luke repeats this narrative, but he adds that Jesus was born when Quirinius was governor of Syria, which was okay, except he didn't become governor of Syria until the winter of between 6 and 7. Jesus would have been nearly 7 years old. So we've got some factual issues right off the get-go. But there were bigger ones than that. One of them out of the Matthew story is the murder of the innocents, where Herod supposedly wanted all of the babies under 2 in that entire area to be slaughtered, and it was supposedly happened. But that story never appears anywhere else, and it is so very similar to a similar story in the Hebrew Scriptures that predates it by several centuries. It's likely that never happened. Then the next thing is the star in the east. Astronomers and people have tried for centuries to figure out what was this star in the east. What could that have possibly been? Nobody has been able to ever really explain what the star in the east was. Likely there was no star in the east. And then the last thing to me that is at least the most obvious, that questions the stories as relayed in those two Gospels, is this concept of virgin birth. I'm not going to go into that from a factual standpoint, but let's just say there is room for doubt that there was such a thing as a virgin birth. However, it can be a symbol, and that's the next part I go to is, what are the symbols in these stories? First of all, the symbols that are common to both of the narratives. One was the begats. I call them the begats. That's not their real name. I don't know. But it's, this guy begat that guy who begat that guy, and we begat all the way down. In the book of Matthew, Matthew takes all the begats all the way from Abraham down to Jesus. Now, not to be outdone, they wrote these books independently at about the same time. Luke, he goes all the way back to Adam. So what we're seeing here, and these are not so much the symbols, but the meaning behind it, is that Matthew is showing that Jesus, more than anything else, was a Jew. And Matthew's audience in his gospel was for Jewish followers of Jesus. The Jewish people that were following the teachings of a fellow Jew, Jesus, that were following, and that was his audience. And he was cementing the fact that Jesus was primarily, first and foremost, a Jew. Luke, on the other hand, traced his begats all the way back to Adam, proving that Jesus was not only a Jew, but he was the Son of God. Second thing, and I'll go back now to the virgin birth. Why did they throw in this story of the virgin birth? There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one is that the idea of a virgin birth goes back a long way, clear back, Mithra and beyond. There were many virgin births before Jesus of Nazareth. It was included in order to fulfill the prophecy in the Hebrew scriptures, the prophecy of Isaiah, who prophesied that there would be a boy born of a virgin woman. And to understand these, I think it's important to understand the times. The Israelites, the Hebrew people, had been promised by their God that they would have this land. It's the promised land. And that they would be dominant. And the 12 tribes of Israel dominated the Middle East for a long, long, long time. They were the tough kids on the block. They had it all. And then all of a sudden the Romans showed up. And the Romans were stronger, better armed, better equipped, better everything. In about the time of the Common Era, give or take a year or so either side, the temple had been destroyed in Jerusalem. The Jewish temple had been destroyed. And the Romans were ruling with an iron fist. The Hebrew people were no longer the chosen people. They were no longer the big kids on the block. And they were looking for a leader. They were looking for a new person. It's the same thing that we see today in the business world. If your stock starts underperforming, what does the board of directors want to do? They want to boot the CEO and get a new one. That's almost exactly the same thing. The people wanted a new leader. They were desperate for somebody new to teach them a new and different way of doing things. A new and never seen before way of thinking and being. Now, many of them were looking for a military ruler, perhaps a political ruler, a big, strong, whatever it was. But what they were getting were teachings of peace, of harmony, of a different way of living. And it was shocking to many people. The third symbol that I find in there is the use of halos. remember that very few people could read and write in that time. About the only people that could read and write were the scribes. They were the people that were brought up in the theology of the time. The common person, you and I, did not know how to read and write. So everything was done with pictures. And people drew pictures of what it was. And so certain people were given halos. Those halos indicated that God is within that person. Today in our movement, we'd all have halos. Now look at the symbols that are unique to Matthew. First of all, it would be the three kings. Now, well, what do the three kings represent? I think most of Christianity believes that they represent the triune nature of God. That is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Now, if we look at it from our standpoint, we look at the triune nature of God, and we see our teaching symbol, we see spirit, soul, and body. Or as Judy put it, seed, soil, plant. We have an idea, we have the original concept, we have the creative medium, and then we have the manifestation. But it's a triune nature. Next thing is the star. What about this star that we couldn't ever find any astronomical support of? Remember that the people of that era were much more familiar with the heavens than we are today. We've got light pollution, we've got all these other things. And in cold, we don't go out and look at the stars that often, even in Alaska, even where we don't have as much light pollution. And we're not as connected to the heavens. I think the biggest thing we do is when we have eclipses and things like that. But the ancients paid very, very close attention to the heavens. And they would have known if there was this glowing celestial body that wasn't behaving like anything else. Ancients would have known that. But what's the meaning of that? What can that glowing in the east that leads people on their way to mean? I think if you were to ask that of Ernest Holmes, he'd tell us that is a symbol for our inner light. That is a symbol for our intuition, for our knowing, the still small voice, that ability to look within and just know the right way. It is our inner light. Another symbol from Matthew are the gifts themselves, the gifts that the three wise men brought: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The gold typically has represented royalty. Only the very richest of people could have gold. Frankincense represented godliness. Once again, was a very special thing. Now that's all that the prophets originally said that they would be bringing, were those two. Somehow, I guess the third king felt left out and thought he ought to bring something, I don't know. And he searched around and he came up with myrrh. Now that's interesting because gold, of course, is rare. Frankincense is a fairly rare commodity. Myrrh, on the other hand, is really common. It's a tree sap. And I forget what tree it is, but it's used in not embalming, they didn't drain and put it in, but in helping to preserve bodies after death. Myrrh was mixed in with the burial wraps and stuff, I think probably primarily to keep the odor down. And it was fairly commonly used. In many Christian terms, they talk about the purpose for the myrrh, the symbolism of that as representing the sacrifice that God and or Jesus was going to make. In our philosophy, what could those mean? Gold could be the recognition, our own recognition of our own inherent divinity. That is the gold standard. When we can recognize that we are absolutely products of the Most High, then that is our gold standard, recognition of our divine nature. The frankincense, love. It's when we can see the best in each other. Love. We can see beyond how late somebody leaves their Christmas lights up. And we can see the truth. And myrrh, the release of judgment. Instead of releasing this earthly body, we release judgment. We release that need to wonder why somebody still has their Christmas lights up in February. From the book of Luke, the symbols, the big one, I think, are the shepherds. Remember, these Gospels were written for the common people. They were written, and what is more common than a simple shepherd? To make the hero of your story be just like you. Shepherds, common down-to-earth people. And this new way of thinking, this new way of dealing with life from love and peace and harmony and joy is not just for nobles or scribes or Pharisees, but it is for everybody. It is for each and every one of us. And the shepherds represent the joy that is inherent in all of us. So how does all of this apply to us? How do we take these Christmas stories and these symbols and apply them to our daily lives as we go through life every day? We use these teachings. We embrace the things that were taught 2,000 years ago in this Christian environment. These principles are not unique to Christianity. They are in fact inherent in Judaism, the entire Abrahamic tradition. They are true in Islam. They're the same things that Confucius taught. They're the same things that Lao Tzu taught. They're the same things that the Buddha teaches. These ways of being are not unique to Christianity. And these principles are exactly the same all the time. They don't change. And as I thought about this and how to do those, and I had to ask Ann, I gotta confess, but you know, we have these banners. We put them up every Christmas. And they say peace, love, joy, and light. This is exactly what this was the teachings of these nativity narratives, the symbols behind it, the light of the star, the love that is represented by the frankincense, the joy of the shepherds, and the peace from the virgin birth. So what I ask you today, your takeaway, the thing to remember from today's talk is that there are principles, spiritual principles, that have existed for millennium that can help us deal with all of the crush of the modern day world. And when we can step out of the to-do list, we can embrace peace, love, joy, and light. And so it is with awareness of these principles, awareness of these characteristics of the divine, that I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in holding our congregation in love and light, and simply knowing that as we go through this thing called life, we are blessed with the peace, an internal peace, a way of knowing that as we go through this Christmas season, this Hanukkah, I think it comes to an end pretty soon, that we indeed have that peace at our very core. And that as we interact with other people, we do so from a platform of love. Love for ourselves and love for everyone else. From a platform of joy. As we go through life, we recognize the joy that it comes when we can see the divine in everyone, regardless of when their Christmas decorations come down. And light. We become enlightened. We can see the light in one another. So as we face all of the things in life, we know that we are not alone. We have that infinite presence with us. And so we just give thanks. We give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God in our lives. And with that, we can just step back. We can let it go. We can let it be. We can release all of our words and just know the truth. A peace of love, of joy, and light. And so it is. Oh, thank you all so much. Thank you. Choir, Aaron, thank you. This is the time in a service where we are afforded the opportunity to participate in the law of circulation. Looks like Judy's on her lonesome today. Oh, here comes Ann. Woman does everything around here.
I get support.
Yeah. While we're kind of waiting for a moment, I would like to address Hanukkah. We haven't done anything with Hanukkah this year. We are coming to the end. Yes, Claire?
Tonight's the last night.
Oh, tonight's the last night. Okay. This is a story, and it explains it to me. It makes sense to me, so I'll share it with you. And this was a young man who was asking an elder about Hanukkah. What's the big deal, you know? So what, this oil lasts or whatever. And so the guy gave him an explanation. He says, okay, imagine this. Here you are, stuck in this place, and no electricity. You look down at your cell phone, and you got 10% battery. He says, yeah. And he says, so you figure, we're just going to trust. We're going to have faith. We're going to let it go. Continues to use his cell phone, and his cell phone lasts for 8 days. Kid goes, whoa! Says, what would you call that? He says, man, that'd be a miracle. He says, now you understand Hanukkah. Is that close enough? Okay. What am I? I'm probably forgetting something. Okay, here, we're ready for our affirmation. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is. And I forgot to name the people that we see online today. Oh, here's that. Oh, let's see, we've got Michelle Kuntz, David Michael, Cindy Hensley, Carrie Reinfrank, I don't know her, Rochelle Norton, imagine Kevin's there too, Lynn and Marion, Judith Mack, Cassie Marco, there's another, somebody, Kaleem, Dana, Michelle Scammon, Michelle Jones, and Salvi Miller. So, now we can go.
In the silence there is peace. In the silence there is unspoken joy. In the silence there's release from a world filled with chaos and noise. I awake to these precious moments when I hear of never be said right here in this holy silence. I find God, I find myself. In the silence there is peace. In the silence there is unspoken joy. In the silence there's release from a world filled with chaos and noise. I awake to these precious moments when I hear all that could never be said right here in this holy silence. I find God. I find God. I find myself.
Nice, thank you. So next week, please, we have Zoe coming back, and it's gonna be, woo! So everybody get out there skipping and be ready for Zoe next week. Now, Reverend Dawn, I noticed you didn't do a joke today, so I'm almost feeling obligated.
I'll do it, Linda.
So where does fruit go to vacation?
Where, Linda?
Paris. That's why Dawn didn't tell the joke today. Okay. So, our affirmation today, please repeat after me. I am enough,
I am enough,
just the way I am.
just the way I am.
Awesome. And for benediction today, whew, we all have halos, and our inner lights shine as brightly as we allow. So where can we create a parade of support? Look around. Who needs the glow of a string of lights? Let's release judgment this season and be a shepherd of joy. Let's turn our to-dos into to-bes. Please help me anchor this by saying, and so it is.
There was a time in my life I thought I'd have to do it all for myself. Didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. Didn't know the love of God was at hand. But now I can say This is the life.